The anime begins with our main protagonists, Seito Hojo and Akane Sakuramori crossing paths in the school hallway just before class. When Seito gets close to her, Akane suddenly grabs his tie and warns him not to reveal their secret to the class or else. It turns out that Seito has secretly married Akane, his arch-nemesis and the girl he dislikes most. This shocking event happened just 4 days prior. Flashback to the previous day. Akane berates Seito for messing up the class log, nitpicking and yelling at him over every small mistake. Her relentless criticism irritates Seito to the point where he snaps back, telling her to go touch grass or something. Akane retorts that she's too busy correcting his bad attitude. Suddenly, Himari, another classmate, steps in, asking Akane to ease up, but Akane defends herself, accusing Seito of disrespecting the class and everyone around him. Seito, of course, disagrees. Himari questions why Akane is so fixated on him, catching Akane off guard. Flustered, she assumes it's because just seeing him makes her blood boil. Their argument is interrupted when another classmate calls out for Seito, grabbing the girl's attention. The newcomer, an attractive girl, happens to be Seito's cousin from Alabama, who comforts him. Much to his relief, she's the only one who understands him. Himari speculates that Akane's constant pestering might mean she has feelings for Seito. But Akane clearly denies this, shouting that she'd never like him, even if he were the last man alive. Seito, equally annoyed, responds with the same energy. After school, Seito receives a call from his grandfather, Tenryu Hojo, requesting a private conversation. As the heir to the Hojo group, Seito shows no interest in the discussion, prompting Tenryu to have him forcibly taken in a luxury car by men in black suits. During the ride, the driver explains how Tenryu saved the Hojo group from collapse during a major recession, turning it into a global high-tech corporation. Despite being 60 years old, Tenryu remains sharp and active as the company's head. The driver mentions that Tenryu is fond of Seito, unlike his father. Soon after arriving at his grandfather's residence, Seito is surprised to find Akane there as well. She explains her grandmother forced her to come. The two immediately start arguing over trivial things, but their grandparents arrive and laugh, finding their bickering amusing. Inside, Tenryu announces they're here to celebrate, though Seito and Akane have no idea what he means. Frustrated, Seito demands an explanation, and their grandparents reveal the shocking truth: they're arranging their marriage. Both Seito and Akane are horrified. Initially, Seito assumes it's a joke, while Akane, stunned, argues that they're still in high school. Her grandmother, Chiyo Sakuramori, points out they only need to be 18 to marry. Tenryu and Chiyo explain that they were once in love but separated due to petty disagreements. Each went on to marry others and fulfill their respective responsibilities, but now, as their lovers are both 10 feet under, they regret not being together. They took this opportunity to correct their missed chance, wanting their grandchildren to marry. Akane furiously rejects the idea, declaring she'll marry for love, to which Seito agrees too. Anticipating resistance, Tenryu unveils a backup plan. He points to a stray dog in the backyard, declaring that if Seito refuses, he'll leave the Hojo group to the dog. He insists that logic and sanity don't matter in running a company. Meanwhile, Chiyo whispers a vague but terrifying threat to Akane, leaving her shaken. With this ultimatum, the grandparents give them 3 days to decide. As Seito and Akane leave the house, they avoid making any agreements due to their mutual hostility. Back home in her room, Akane reflects on why she's always antagonistic towards Seito. She realizes it's because he consistently outperforms her in grades. He's always first, while she's second. Seeking advice, she calls Himari and asks what she'd do if her family forced her into marriage. Himari says she'd refuse as she already has someone she likes. Surprised, Akane presses for details, but Himari refuses to reveal the person's identity. When asked the same question, Akane says she'd rather wish bad things on the person in question, even hoping for a meteor to strike them, as she dislikes everyone. Himari jokingly suggests that Akane should just go through with the marriage so they can split the rent and bills. However, Akane dismisses those as valid reasons to marry. Curious, Akane then asks Himari what she would do about the other things boys and girls are expected to do in marriage, hinting at intimacy. Himari finds some logic in that, noting that having heirs is important, but casually adds that it would be fun to have 100 babies. This horrifies Akane even more. Meanwhile, Seito wrestles with his own dilemma, thinking, why did it have to be Akane? He's convinced she'd make his life unbearable at home, just like at school. But when his Alabama cousin, Shizzy, notices his distress, she asks what's wrong. Seito explains how his grandfather is pressuring him into marriage and threatening to leave the company to a stray dog if he refuses. But Shizzy advises him to reflect on what matters more, his freedom or the Hojo group. Seito admits he wants both, but Shizzy reminds him that no one can have it all. She explains that life is bound by rules and instincts. The trick is to work within those constraints. She adds that not inheriting the company isn't a failure, and even if he ends up broke and rummaging through trash, she'd still be by his side. Touched by her loyalty, Seiko thanks her for her support. 3 days later, the day of decision arrives. To everyone's surprise, both Sato and Akane announce their intent to get married. Akane quickly clarifies she doesn't love him, but Sato informs his grandfather that they'll proceed after college. However, Tenryu shocks them by saying everything begins now. Their belongings have already been moved to their new home, and their marriage certificates have been submitted. Soon, Tenryu and Chio leave them at their breeding nest, ignoring Akane's pleas not to abandon her. Once inside, Akane accuses Sato of trying to lock her up when he bolts the door, but he points out it's standard for safety and can be opened from the inside. Exploring their new home, they stumble upon some surprises: a romantic jacuzzi in the bathroom and a single bed in the bedroom. When Sato calls his grandfather to complain, Tenryu explains that a single bed is only natural for a married couple, with the first rule being no sleeping on the couch or floor. Akane, horrified, protests to her grandmother, who only encourages her to embrace her new life. Sato suspects their grandparents might have installed cameras to monitor them, but Akane cuts him off, accusing him of having perverted intentions. She pulls out a pencil in self-defense and storms off, mistrusting his every move. Later in the kitchen, Sato offers to share dinner, but Akane misinterprets it as a sinister comment, accusing him of wanting to devour her. Ignoring her paranoia, he hands her a slice of pizza, which she takes before retreating to a corner. When it's finally bedtime, Sato lies on one end of the bed, exhausted, only to feel Akane settle on the other. They both realize the bed is deliberately too small, clearly another ploy by their grandparents. Sato becomes self-conscious about the sweet scent of Akane's freshly washed hair, which makes him nervous. Akane warns him that if he tries anything, she'll end him. Sato assures her he has no intentions and admits he's never been in a relationship either, which surprisingly calms her down. Curious, Sato asks why Akane agreed to marry him. She dodges the question, saying it's purely formal, and though she hates the rules, she'll endure them to achieve her goals. Sato teasingly asks what she'd do if the rules eventually require them to have kids. Alarmed, Akane backs away, causing Sato to accidentally hit her jacked in the confusion. Enraged, Akane twists his finger and threatens to break it even after he explains it was an accident due to the bed's size. Back in the present, Akane sternly warns Sato to keep their marriage a secret at school. Shiken proposes setting him up with a bomb trigger device to ensure he doesn't slip up. Sato, now more stressed than ever, realizes this is only the beginning of their chaotic school life as a married couple. As the group enters the classroom, Himera curiously asks what they had been discussing in the hallway. Akane smirks and says she was just telling Sato to take his ugly face elsewhere. While Sato finds his seat, Shize notices a new scent on him and questions where he spent the night. Nervously, Sato claims his dad bought a new shampoo, but Shize isn't buying it. She detects a woman's fragrance mixed in. Knowing something was off, she'd done her homework and discovered Sato is secretly married and living in a separate house. Sato quickly ushers Shize outside to stop her from spilling the secret, but Shize demands hush money, accusing him of not even consulting her before doing biology lessons in bed. When he asks what she wants, Shize says she'll think about it and let him know later. After gym class, Akane resumes picking on Sato for leaving equipment outside the storage room. Sato defends himself, explaining it's for the next class, but Akane finds other faults to nitpick, sparking yet another heated exchange. Their banter draws the entire class, who gathers to watch the comedy show. Himera jokes that their constant bickering has become legendary. Later at home, Akane complains about the fridge being overrun with juice boxes, and Sato proudly admits it was his idea. When she argues for a balanced diet, Sato smugly shows her a cupboard stuffed with instant ramen. For protein, he introduces the concept of protein shakes, but Akane refuses to rely on artificial food. Another argument ensues, during which Sato admits he spent years grooming his taste buds to the point where terrible food actually tastes good to him. Akane realizes his awful habits might kill him one day, which would interfere with her own goals, so she decides to teach him the value of real cooking. When she makes him dinner, Sato becomes paranoid, suspecting she's trying to poison him. Hesitant, he finally takes a bite and is instantly reminded of his childhood and the homemade meals he used to have. He awkwardly describes it as an average homemade meal, exactly what he's always wanted. Misunderstanding, Akane thinks he's insulting her and tries to take the plate away. Sato snatches it back and devours the food, leaving Akane fuming. The next morning, Akane wakes him up for school, but half asleep, Sato mistakes her for Shize and pulls her into bed. Akane smacks him awake and drags him downstairs, laying out a deal. If she cooks, he does the dishes. Sato suggests letting them pile up so he can clean everything at once, which only annoys her further. She also scolds him about leaving toilet paper rolls and soap wrappers in the bathroom. Seiko defends his lazy habits, claiming trash should only be thrown out once a month. Akane, being obsessively clean, can't handle his mess, while Sato sees her as overly demanding. On their walk to school, Sato reflects on how different they are and questions whether living with Akane is even possible. That evening, Sato plays a zombie game to blow off steam, but Akane barges in, asking him to turn down the volume. Seeing the graphic horror game, she shields her eyes in disgust and tells him to stop playing. Seiko refuses, arguing it's one of the most popular games in the world. Frustrated, Akane tries to snatch the controller, and the tug-of-war ends with her unplugging the console. As the rest of his belongings arrive, Sato realizes every day with Akane is a battle. Needing to recharge, he heads to the shower, only to find Akane asleep in the bathtub. Embarrassed, he leaves but worries she might drown in her sleep. Reluctantly, he re-enters and tries to wake her by shouting, but when she begins to slip, Sato quickly pulls her out. Akane lands on top of him, waking up in a panic as the awkward scene unfolds. Akane assumes the worst of Seiko's intentions when he pulls her out of the tub, accusing him of trying something indecent. Things escalate when she realizes he touched her while helping her, leading to an uncomfortable argument. Later, while dyeing her hair, Akane reflects on the incident, wondering if Seiko came into the bathroom with genuine concern to stop her from drowning. That night, as they prepare for bed, Akane works up the courage to ask Sato about his actions. Before she can finish, Sato turns off the lights, leaving her unanswered and teary-eyed as she silently cries herself to sleep. The next day, Himari notices Akane looking unusually down and decides to check on her. Akane reluctantly opens up, confessing that she wants to repair her relationship with someone but doesn't know how. Himari suggests suing it out, but Akane shoots that idea down. Himari then advises simply talking it out, though Akane doubts her ability to do so, citing her struggles as an introvert. Himari reveals that even extroverts like her face challenges in relationships. She shares a crucial tip: show respect before you demand it. The advice strikes a chord with Akane, giving her a new perspective. Meanwhile, Sato and Shizi are sharing bread outside. Sato complains about how his house has become a disaster zone. Shizi bluntly suggests he should just get a divorce, but Sato insists it's too late since he's committed to taking over the family company. Shizi advises him to try getting along with Akane instead, pointing out that successful relationships often require compromise. Sato reluctantly considers her words. Determined to mend things, Sato returns home to make amends but freezes when he sees Akane's angry face. As he tries to avoid her, Akane stops him and gently asks if they can discuss their issues. She fears their constant arguments will lead to divorce and wants to find a way for them to coexist peacefully. Reluctantly, Sato agrees, suggesting they establish ground rules for living together. Akane points out that she's been handling all the chores, but Sato explains his preference for doing laundry and dishes in bulk for efficiency. When Akane protests about germs, he recalls Shizi's advice and compromises, agreeing to clean up daily. When it's Sato's turn to share a concern, he asks Akane to stop smacking him every time they accidentally brush against each other in bed. Though hesitant, Akane acknowledges the cramped sleeping arrangements and agrees to set boundaries. She also requests that he use headphones when playing horror games to avoid scaring her. Sato complies, adding that expressing verbal gratitude can strengthen their bond. Akane awkwardly agrees to thank him when he does something kind, and nervously asks him to compliment her cooking if he likes it. Later that night, Akane calls Himari, telling her that although she and Sato are far from perfect, they've managed to clear the air. Just as she's about to hang up, Sato enters the room, and she impulsively offers herself for him to touch to his heart's content. Mortified when Sato clarifies he meant physical contact by accident, Akane's embarrassment is overwhelming. The following day, Sato updates Shizi on their slow but steady progress toward a better relationship. That evening, he surprises Akane with her favorite strawberry shortcake, something he remembered from an essay she wrote in their first year. Akane is touched by his thoughtfulness and thanks him with a warm smile, making Sato blush. To return the favor, Akane cooks a lavish dinner. Sato praises her cooking, delighting her. While he does the dishes, Akane offers to help, leaving Sato stunned. It feels unreal to him since she's usually so cold. Watching her smile, he realizes she's surprisingly cute when she lets her guard down. Sato was reading a book when Akane interrupted him, asking if he had to finish it that night. He said no, so she mentioned renting a movie about cats and suggested they watch it together. When she revealed it was a 24-hour movie, he was shocked. She explained it only cost 100 yen and flipped the case, discovering there was a 3-hour highlight version. Sato insisted they watch the shorter version. However, he fell asleep during the movie, leaving Akane to enjoy it alone. After it ended, Sato woke up abruptly, and Akane promised they'd watch his favorite movie next time. He confessed he preferred games over movies and suggested teaching her how to play, confidently claiming she'd get addicted. Skeptical, Akane said she wouldn't, but 30 minutes later, she was hooked and even beat him in a match. That night, as they lay in bed, she thanked him and he promised to buy her favorite games along with his favorite movies. She then asked him to call her by her first name, making him a little awkward. The next morning, Sato noticed that he and Akane weren't bickering like usual. When he asked her if she had started to hate him, Akane denied it. Another friend, Himari, teased them about reconciling, making Akane nervous enough to run off. Later in the library, Shizi noticed the book Sato was reading about communication skills and expressed surprise. When she asked if it was helpful, Sato affirmed it was. In the hallway, Sato tried to talk to Akane, but she yelled at him for addressing her at school. He led her to a secluded spot where he asked about her plans after school. She replied she had nothing other than studying, so he suggested they go shopping. Akane reacted dramatically, asking if it was a date. Embarrassed, Sato dragged her into an empty classroom and clarified it wasn't a date, just a way to carry the shopping bags easily. Both awkwardly laughed, convincing themselves it was nothing special. As Akane was leaving, Himari invited her to walk home together and suggested visiting a bread shop with a discount. Akane declined, mentioning prior plans, and ran off. While rushing down the stairs, she accidentally stepped on Shizi, who was lying down. Apologizing quickly, Akane tried to leave, but Shizi asked what kind of collaboration she wanted with Sato and wouldn't let her go without an answer. Akane dashed off, saying she had important business. Akane and Sato walked to a nearby store where she focused on buying the cheapest items until she spotted discounted chicken breast. Rushing to grab it, she got caught in the crowd and fell. Sato also tried but failed, and the chicken sold out. Akane vowed to try again next time and told Sato to stay by her side for support. On their way back, Sato complimented her diligence, saying she'd make a great wife. Startled, Akane reminded him she was already married, and they continued their awkward walk home. That night, Akane woke up to Sato touching her face. Assuming the worst, she accused him of assault. Sato nervously defended himself, claiming she had been clinging to him, but she denied it. Eventually, he admitted he found her sleeping face cute and wanted to pinch her cheek. Surprised, Akane asked if that was true. When he affirmed it, she allowed him to look at her for a while before going back to sleep. The next morning, they were both so flustered and distracted that Akane had burned the bread while Sato walked around wearing a tie but no shirt. They bought bread at a shop and ate outside. Himari spotted them and started questioning them curiously. Flustered, Akane claimed Sato was following her, picked up a piece of bread from the ground and threw it away, saying it was too big for her. Sato grew annoyed at how Akane was talking and started yelling at her. She fired back and their argument grew louder until Himari stepped in to separate them. Later, Akane sat down to study for a quiz. Sato, noticing her stress, told her not to overwork herself, but Akane brushed him off, telling him to study as well. He smugly replied that he remembered everything taught in class and didn't need to study. Irritated, she snapped at him to leave and shut the door behind him. A while later, Sato knocked on her door, offering her dinner. Excitedly, Akane accepted the strawberry sandwiches. Taking a bite, she loved them so much they gave her a burst of motivation to study harder. She stayed up all night without rest, preparing for the quiz. The next morning, Sato made her breakfast, but the lack of sleep caught up to her, and she collapsed in the school hallway. Himari, noticing, helped her up and asked if she was okay. Akane admitted she hadn't been sleeping well. Himari urged her to take care of herself, warning that she wouldn't beat Sato if she ruined her health. Determined, Akane insisted she'd defeat him no matter what. That evening, Sato found Akane asleep at her study table. Concerned, he placed a hand on her forehead and realized she had a fever. He gently woke her and told her to rest, applying a cold compress to her forehead. Despite her condition, Akane insisted on studying, saying she couldn't afford to give up on her dream. When Sato asked about her dream, she revealed that she wanted to become a doctor to save her loved ones. However, because her family couldn't afford the fees, she had agreed to marry him under the condition that his grandmother would pay for her education. She vented her frustration about how effortlessly Sato got good grades while she struggled endlessly without success. Sato reassured her that talent varies from person to person, but Akane admitted this both frustrated her and made her admire him. Shocked, Sato asked what she meant. Realizing what she had said, Akane grew flustered and nervously yelled at him to forget it. Later that night, her fever hadn't subsided and Sato considered calling an ambulance. Akane resisted, worried that it might deprive someone with a terminal illness of the help they needed. Seeing her stubbornness, Sato decided to take matters into his own hands. Picking her up in his arms, he told her he couldn't just ignore her pain. He ran to the hospital with her, and along the way, she worried he'd mock her dream. Instead, he assured her she could achieve it and believed in her. Reflecting on their marriage, Sato thought about how he once hated her, but now believed their relationship might lead to a happy ending. A week later, Akane woke Sato up in the morning, threatening to use a frying pan if he didn't get up. Alarmed, he shot up in bed, calling her a demon. She retorted, saying she had come to wake him kindly, only for him to think of her that way. She demanded a thank you, which he gave begrudgingly, wondering how she had recovered so quickly. Akane reminded him to wash his face, scolding him for not doing so the day before. Sato joked that the rain had taken care of it. She lectured him for being careless, but he teased her back, saying she shouldn't scold someone she looks up to. To prove his point, he showed her a video he had recorded of her admitting it. Furious, she chased him to get his phone. Later, Himari congratulated Sato on scoring 100 on the quiz, leaning a bit too close for comfort. He stepped back, prompting Himari to laugh at his cluelessness before walking away. Moments later, Akane approached him, clearly annoyed. She leaned in close and whispered that as his wife, she wouldn't allow him to get too close to other girls. Then she walked away, leaving Sato stunned, wondering how Akane had become so cute lately. This then marks the end of today's anime recap. The next morning, Sato hurries to class when Akane calls out to him, asking him to stop. Assuming she's about to argue, he ignores her. However, she just wants to return a lunchbox, thinking he left it behind because he dislikes her cooking. When Sato admits he genuinely forgot it, she insists he eats every bite since she put a lot of effort into making it. During recess, as Sato gets ready to enjoy his meal, Shisei shows up and demands he share the lunch with her. Sato refuses, pointing out she already had a large breakfast. Shisei counters, claiming men will never understand a woman's cravings. A playful argument ensues, and Shisei uses her charm to turn the class against Sato. Left with no choice, he agrees to share, but just then, Himari arrives and notices that his lunchbox matches Akane's. The entire class begins speculating that Akane prepared Sato's lunch, fueling rumors that they're in a relationship. Embarrassed, Sato and Akane deny being a couple, but someone jokes that they've acted like a married pair all along. Amid the chaos, Shisei eats Sato's entire lunch, nonchalantly explaining that she only did it to eliminate the evidence for him. She then questions him about life at home, teasingly suggesting there might be something going on between him and Akane. Later, Himari greets Sato by leaping in front of him. When he warns her to be careful, she confidently replies that she knows he'll catch her. As they walk to class, Himari asks if Akane really made his lunch. Sato explains Akane just copied his. Himari then asks if they're dating, and when he says no, she excitedly runs off. Watching from a distance, Shisei notices Himari's expression change whenever she's near Sato. That night, Sato and Akane are in bed when Akane hears a noise in the house and screams, thinking it's a ghost. Sato wakes up but dismisses her fear, trying to go back to sleep. Frustrated, Akane keeps talking until he finally agrees to check. As Sato investigates, Akane clings to him, begging him not to leave her alone. The next day, Sato is in his study when a scared Akane walks in, saying she heard something moving in the living room. He jokingly suggests she take a photo, but she refuses, terrified she'll get possessed. When he asks why she came to him, she says it's to protect him from ghosts. Later, while Sato is in the bathroom, Akane keeps knocking on the door, pleading to be let in. That night, she announces she's going to take a bath and insists he stay nearby for her safety. Hoping for a romantic moment, Sato agrees and watches her silhouette through the blinds as she talks to reassure herself. The following day, Sato seeks advice from Shisei, who immediately deduces he's dealing with marital troubles. She reassures him that everyone needs someone to lean on and it's okay to ask for help. Sato explains that Akane constantly mentions a ghost in the house and has turned his life into chaos. Shisei, suspecting there might actually be a spirit, decides to investigate. Later, Shisei directly asks Akane if she's married to Sato, declaring she already knows everything and suspects are getting dirty under the sheets. To keep her from spreading rumors, Sato and Akane drag her into an empty classroom. Akane, fuming, assumes Sato blabbed, but he insists he said nothing. Shisei confesses she figured it out herself. Accepting that it's okay if Sato's family finds out, Akane apologizes for not telling Shisei sooner. Shisei then announces that their house is infested with spirits and warns that Akane will be cursed if they don't act. She adds that if the problem continues, Akane's grades will drop by 50 points in every subject. Panicked, Akane pleads for Shisei's help. That evening, Sato and Akane escort Shisei to their home, where she immediately senses the presence of spirits lingering outside. Akane begins to panic, but Shisei reassures her, promising to identify the source and eliminate it. Inside the house, Sato leads Shisei to his study, where she immediately accuses him of hiding explicit books. Akane is horrified to discover that he's been hoarding an entire library, but Sato defends himself, claiming he only reads ordinary novels. While exploring the study, Shisei stumbles upon Sato's underwear and, inappropriately, starts sniffing them, commenting that they smell like detergent. Embarrassed, Sato quickly snatches them away before things take an even weirder turn. Moving on, Shisei suggests inspecting Akane's study, but Akane adamantly refuses, warning that only God knows what horrors might be uncovered there. Instead, she directs Shisei to their bedroom, where Akane first encountered the supposed ghost. After carefully analyzing every possibility, Shisei concludes that the ghost they've been searching for is, in fact, herself. As it turns out, she's been sneaking into the house over the past few days. Based on what she overheard, she deduces that Akane and Sato mistook her presence for a spirit. When questioned about why she didn't clarify sooner, Shisei reveals she had keys from their grandpa but preferred to sneak in to avoid disrupting their speedrun at making babies. As a reward for solving the mystery, Shisei demands dinner, having enjoyed Akane's homemade lunch earlier. Showering Akane with exaggerated praise, she declares her the best chef in existence despite Akane's true talent being her ability to create a mess. Flattered, Akane prepares an elaborate meal. Later, as Sato wipes food from Akane's face, she suddenly realizes how close they've become without noticing. After dinner, Shisei sits on Sato's lap, learning to play a cat-themed game. Sato notices something off with Akane and asks if she's okay. She insists she's fine, warning him that she'll pull his teeth out if he asks again. When Sato decides to take a shower, Shisei casually announces she'll join him, claiming they always bathe together. Suspicious, Akane insists they shower separately, worried that bathing isn't all they're doing. Later that night, Akane sneaks into bed and admits she has a list of frustrations she couldn't share in front of Shisei. Putting his book aside, Sato listens as Akane expresses her annoyance about not knowing he bought the cat game. Sato explains he didn't want to disturb her since she was busy studying, but Akane argues she still needs breaks. She laments not being the first to play the game, but jokingly claims it's all part of her plan to get a head start and beat him. This sparks playful teasing between the two, and Akane says she feels better after venting. Sato then asks if that was the only thing on her mind. Hesitantly, Akane admits she feels a little jealous seeing him as she stays so close. However, she quickly changes the subject, warning Sato to keep his hands away from her jacked, to which Sato responds that he isn't touching her at all. At that moment, Shisei emerges from between them, revealing she's been there all along. Shisei discloses that she and Sato have shared a bed since childhood and clarifies that she feels most at ease around him. Sensing Akane's discomfort, Shisei prepares to leave, but Akane insists she stay, admitting she's not ready for any nighttime surprises. Later, Shisei asks Akane if she gets jealous when Sato gives her attention. Though Akane tries to deny it, her blushing gives her away. Shisei advises her to confess her feelings to Sato, explaining that he'll never know how she truly feels unless she tells him. Akane recalls the time when Himari wanted to watch a drama with her and even recorded it, but Akane coldly told her to stay away because she needed to study. Himari insisted that taking breaks was normal, but Akane shut her down with a sharp "begone" response. Despite this, Himari had no sense of self-respect and kept clinging to Akane, pestering her to visit a cake shop and try the new strawberry parfait. Eventually, Himari managed to convince Akane to spend time with her, and from that point on, they became friends. In the present, Himari teases Akane, asking if she ever gets flustered thinking about Sato, since lately she's been falling asleep with thoughts of his hideous face. Akane, of course, has to pretend she doesn't like him, but Himari thinks he's husband material. She recalls a time when he helped a friend who collapsed from heat stroke. Watching him stay calm in a crisis made her realize how reliable he was, even if he looked like a homeless clown. This reminds Akane of the time Sato carried her to the hospital, and no matter how much she wants to deny it, she can't. Himari then mentions that she's noticed Akane and Sato getting along quite well and asks if she could set them up for a date. Despite being married to the guide, Akane sees how excited Himari is and agrees, fully aware that she's setting her up for disaster. Himari then bombards her with questions about Sato, and Akane realizes something horrifying. Despite breaking beds with him every night, she knows nothing about him. Determined to fix this, she spends the next day secretly stalking him and recording his every move. During dinner, she casually asks Sato if he has a specific type of woman, but he's been so deprived of love that he doesn't even know what that means. Switching tactics, she asks about his favorite food, and he reveals he loves steak, sushi, and seafood bowls. The next day, Akane tells Himari that Sato enjoys raw meat and raw garlic. Instead of finding it weird, Himari is thrilled to learn something new about him. Akane also mentions that he likes playing disturbing horror games and reading trashy magazines before bed. Himari finds it odd that Akane knows his nighttime habits, but Akane covers it up by claiming she overheard a conversation between Sato and Shisei. That night, Sato asks what's for dinner. When Akane says fish, he grumbles that he'd rather have steak. She asks why he was expecting steak, and he admits he was looking forward to it because she asked about it the day before. Seeing how excited he gets, Akane finds it adorable, and they decide to go to the store to buy raw meat. Later, she cooks steak for him, and he loves it so much that she starts thinking it's some kind of trap. But when Seiko wishes she'd make steak every day, she gets so excited that she leans into him and promises to cook high-quality meals from now on. The next day, Himari approaches Sato and asks if he has a specific type, but instead of answering, he gives her a lecture on why categorizing people like that is unhealthy. In his opinion, humans are too complex to be reduced to a type. Himari, desperate to get on his good side, pretends to admire his way of thinking. She explains that most guys who like her don't even put effort into truly knowing her. Seiko sympathizes, commenting that it must be tough for her to be so pretty. Not wanting to seem full of herself, Himari downplays her looks and acts like she's average. After she leaves, Shisei appears and starts teasing Sato for rizzing up every girl. Later, while Sato is gaming, Akane sneaks into his study to take notes on the things he keeps there. Suddenly, Sato walks in, catching her in the act. Akane quickly admits she wanted to check what books he's been reading. He recommends human history through the lens of food and weapons, explaining that it's a satire mocking the foolish things humans do. When Himari tries to read it, however, her PP brain can't comprehend a single word, making Akane regret being such a terrible wingwoman. But Himari reassures her, saying she's been a huge help in her mission to win over Sato. Determined, Himari rushes to class and asks Sato to explain the book to her. Watching them interact, Akane finally starts to realize something unsettling. She's becoming the third wheel in her own marriage. Himari apologizes for bothering Sato, but he reassures her, saying he enjoys talking to her, especially since she helps him out every time Akane becomes a nuisance in class. In an attempt to defend herself, Akane ends up revealing that she told Himari about his favorite book. Realizing her slip-up, she quickly covers it up by bringing up the time she saved Himari from being bullied in school because of her hair. Sato comments that many people with fake blonde hair don't suit the look, but it actually looks good on Himari. Meanwhile, Shisei turns to Akane and asks if she's bothered by all of this, but Akane pretends not to care. That's when Shisei drops a bombshell. Himari has had a crush on Sato since freshman year. Akane is shocked since she never noticed. After school, Himari thanks Akane for all her help and excitedly tells her that Seiko complimented her blonde hair. She's beginning to think he might be into her, so she decides to treat Akane to strawberry tarts at her place. Akane immediately panics, realizing that if Himari visits her house, her secret marriage will be exposed. Thinking fast, she claims her house has turned into a swamp, but Himari sees right through the lie and assumes Akane just doesn't want her over. Not wanting to hurt her feelings, Akane gives in and agrees. At home, Seiko is stunned to hear about the situation, and Akane suggests they hide all his belongings and spray air freshener around so Himari doesn't recognize his scent. However, Himari arrives much earlier than expected, leaving Sato no choice but to hide behind the kitchen counter. Later, Himari asks Akane if she'd be okay with her asking Sato out on a date. She reassures her that she has no intention of getting in their way. Akane, trying to act indifferent, says she has no feelings for an insensitive jerk like Sato. Meanwhile, behind the counter, Sato has to hold back his tears. The next day, Himari finally musters the courage to ask Sato out while Akane and Shisei wait outside the classroom. Shisei looks at Akane and asks if she's really going to let this happen. Akane insists she has no reason to interfere. Shisei doesn't push further but advises her to be honest with herself. That night, Seiko tells Akane that Himari asked him out. Akane brushes it off with a dismissive response, but then Sato bluntly asks if she's fine with having an open marriage. That's when she snaps, furious. She reminds him that they were forced into this marriage in the first place. The next day, when Sato actually dresses up for the date, Akane is shocked. But before she can stop herself, she starts crying and suddenly hugs him from behind. She confesses that she doesn't understand why, but seeing him go out with another woman hurts. She explains that even though their marriage was arranged, they are still husband and wife, and she cannot stand the thought of him pursuing someone else. Hearing this, Sato smirks and says that's exactly what he had been hoping to hear. Then he reveals that he already rejected Himari. Akane, furious at first, demands to know why he played with her feelings like that, but Seiko simply asks her out on a date, promising to buy her anything to make up for toying with her. The next day, Himari greets Seiko with a big smile, and he's stunned Yori moved on. She recalls how Akane rejected her friendship day after day, but her persistence eventually won her over. Similarly, she's determined to keep pursuing Sato until he inevitably falls for her. Just then, Shisei appears, declaring that no one can get close to Seiko without her approval. She then demands a bribe minus 10,000 melon buns might make her reconsider. Himari, ever optimistic, gets excited about the challenge. Meanwhile, Akane watches from a distance, silently vowing to herself that she won't let Sato slip away from her. Soon after, Himari proudly presented a bento she had made for Seito, filled with raw meat and garlic. Akane noted that it was his favorite, but Seito declined, saying he had brought his own food. Undeterred, Akane insisted he try it, reminding him of Himari's effort. Their classmates soon joined in, pressuring him until he reluctantly agreed. Himari thanked him and even offered to feed him. To his surprise, despite its raw appearance, the meat was well cooked and delicious. However, when he attempted to feed himself, Himari refused, making him feel like a baby bird. Akane became defensive, but Himari reassured her before feeding her as well, leaving everyone bewildered. After class, Himari praised Seito as the smartest student and admitted she was struggling in math, asking if he could tutor her. Though hesitant, he eventually agreed. Excited, Himari invited Akane over, mentioning that her parents wouldn't be home. Seito was skeptical, recalling past incidents, but she insisted that she would make him fall for her. Meanwhile, Akane, secretly eavesdropping, grew irritated and interrupted, warning Himari that if anything happened, Seito might have to marry her. Himari laughed it off but suggested they all study together. Shisei suddenly appeared, pointing out that she had been in third place for a while and should join their study sessions. With 3 top students helping her, she was sure to improve. They headed to Akane's house, but teaching Himari proved difficult. She barely grasped the math concepts. Akane recalled how her grades had slipped in their first year, so they started with 10th grade material, which quickly bored Shisei. By the end of the session, Himari praised Seito's teaching and moved closer, eager to continue. This irritated Akane, who then suggested they play a game instead. They decided on a memory challenge, with Akane determined to win. As the night went on, Seito got up to get snacks, but Akane followed, claiming she was afraid he would disappear. She then commented on his sharp memory, noting that he wasn't just smart. His ability to recall things was uncanny. Rather than boasting, Seito admitted that his memory was so sharp it felt unsettling. Every member of the Hojo family had a unique trait. His was exceptional memory, while Shisei excelled at solving complex calculations. Seito recalled how he had once been accused of stalking simply because he remembered every little detail about people. Akane wished she had the same ability so she wouldn't have to study so much and could be more thoughtful toward others. However, Seito teased her, leading to their usual bickering as they walked back. Meanwhile, at Akane's house, Himari and Shisei were enjoying a video game. When Seito and Akane returned, they caught them in the act, unaware that the console actually belonged to Seito. To avoid suspicion, Akane quickly claimed it was her father's, and they moved on. After studying, Himari thanked Seito for his help and suggested they study at his place next time. This flustered both Seito and Akane, while Himari, amused by Seito's reaction, accidentally spilled tea on herself. Seito quickly handed her a towel, and Himari questioned how he knew where to find it. Though momentarily surprised, Seito played it off as a lucky guess, which Himari accepted, calling him a genius. Shisei then took Himari to the sink to clean up, leaving Seito and Akane alone. Akane scolded Seito, blaming him for the situation and saying it wouldn't have happened if he and Himari hadn't been flirting. Seito denied it, but Akane insisted it was his fault for agreeing to tutor Himari, pointing out that he had never even tutored her before. Seito explained that he had tried, but she always ended up yelling at him. In the middle of their argument, the lights suddenly went out and Akane let out a scream. Seito reassured Akane that it was just a blackout and teased her for being so easily scared. He suggested checking the breaker, but Akane clung to him, refusing to be left alone in the dark, even in her own home. Out of nowhere, she asked if guys dislike stubborn girls. Though confused, Seito responded that she was fine just as she was, calling her shy, headstrong, and hardworking. As their conversation continued, the lights flickered back on and Shisei, now changed, walked in. Shocked by how close they seemed, she teased them for finally getting along, but they both quickly denied it. The next day, Akane struggled in class again and asked Seito for help, hoping Akane would join as well. As expected, Akane was grumpy about anything involving Seito. However, to his surprise, once Shisei and Himari left, Akane approached him flirtatiously, asking him to teach her the lesson. Later at home, Seito explained his study technique, an experimental method he had developed. Surprisingly, it worked well for Akane, though he noted it hadn't been as effective on others before. This led him to believe Akane was naturally intelligent. She wanted to keep studying, but Seito insisted she rest to avoid getting sick again. They argued briefly until a calming wind passed through, prompting Seito to ask why she was so determined. He knew she wanted to be a doctor, but he wanted to understand her deeper reasons. His curiosity made her heart race. Akane revealed that her younger sister had been bedridden due to illness and their parents had struggled with hospital bills. Feeling helpless back then, she decided to become a doctor to help others in similar situations. The next day, while watching the news, Akane quickly changed the channel when an idol appeared. When Sato asked why, she dismissed it, but commented on how lucky he was to have Shisei, subtly recalling memories of her own little sister. Her words made Sato feel guilty. After class, he asked Shisei for advice on cheering up Akane. Shisei teased him, suggesting he might be in love with her, but Sato denied it, saying he just didn't want a gloomy roommate. Shisei suggested taking Akane shopping for things she liked: fashion, stylish accessories, and cute sweets. Sato was caught off guard by Akane's feminine side. Shisei even suggested he practice asking her out since a global sweets festival was coming up. That evening, as Akane quietly cooked, Sato nervously invited her out on their next day off. Stunned, she questioned why he wasn't asking Shisei instead and became so flustered that she didn't notice her pot burning. Despite her shock, she agreed. Later, while eating with her grandmother, Akane shyly admitted that Sato had invited her out. Overjoyed, her grandmother joked that she could die happy and revealed a closet full of elegant dresses, saved for the day Akane fell in love. Though Akane denied having any feelings, her grandmother even pulled out lingerie she had set aside for the occasion, embarrassing her further. On the day of their outing, Akane wore a pink dress that left Sato speechless. They visited different shops, and he discovered she had been banned from a cat cafe for being overly enthusiastic. When considering karaoke, Akane hesitated after Himari mentioned couples often kiss there. Still, they went in, picked songs, and even sang a duet. After several performances, they grew tired and stopped at a lemonade shop with a swing to relax. Akane finally asked why he had invited her out. Sato explained that he felt guilty for making her think about her sister and simply wanted to cheer her up. Moved, Akane smiled and agreed to go anywhere he wanted. This led them to a supplement store where Sato enthusiastically sampled everything, even downing protein powder without water, leaving Akane completely stunned. On their way home, Akane noticed a ring in a shop window. Sato suggested she buy it, but she admitted it was too expensive for a high schooler. As they continued walking, Akane thanked him for the day, saying she felt much better. Sato admired her rare smile, wishing he could see it more often. A childhood memory resurfaced, watching his mother cook while wearing a ring. He once asked if it got in the way, but she had explained that it fit perfectly and symbolized his father's love, a promise that they would always be together. She told him that one day he would understand when he found someone who made him truly fall in love. The next day, Sato casually eats a rolled omelet while watching TV, unaware that Akane is upset. She had wanted him to compliment her cooking. At school, he tells Shisei he wants to visit her later, and soon after, her chauffeur, Ru, arrives in a limo to pick them up. They reach Shisei's massive mansion, where she boldly starts changing in front of him before suggesting they play a vampire game, one that involves her sucking his blood. However, Sato suspects there's more to it than just that. Before anything happens, Shisei's mother walks in, interrupting them. She teases Sato, making it clear that she wants her daughter to have a share of his attention as well. Shigen invites him to stay for dinner, but warns that he must leave before nightfall. Otherwise, Akane might set the entire place on fire. Sato then asks if he can work in her company, explaining that he wants to earn money on his own rather than relying on his grandfather. His goal is to buy a gift for Akane. Shisei, realizing he came for that reason instead of spending time with her, gets upset. Sato scrambles to make excuses, but her mother steps in, telling him to stop chasing part-time jobs and start acting like the future CEO of the Hojo family. She also disapproves of his marriage to Akane, calling her unworthy, as she secretly hopes he will marry Shisei instead. To test his abilities, she offers him a position in the localization department, where they need someone to translate an obscure language. She asks if he can master it in 3 days, and Sato confidently claims he can do it overnight. When he gets home, he immediately starts studying, shocking Akane, who has never seen him take academics seriously. She questions his sudden motivation, but Sato brushes her off, wanting to keep the ring a surprise. However, Akane is irritated by his dismissive tone. The next day, Himari notices Sato has been spending time with Shisei 2 days in a row. Akane pretends not to care, but at Shisei's house, things take a turn. She sits on Sato's lap while he works, claiming she wants to feel his presence. When he asks if she's jealous of Akane's gift, Shisei insists she understands his reasons but feels neglected. To make up for it, she asks him to cuddle her to sleep. That night, when Sato finally returns home, Akane greets him but grows suspicious when she smells another woman's perfume on him. Though she pretends not to care, she can't shake the thought. The following day, she visits Grandma Chiyo to vent, but even while acting indifferent, Chiyo sees through her facade, recognizing her own younger self in Akane. Later, Akane runs into Mary, who is heartbroken after getting rejected by Sue once again. As they talk, Shisei walks by and Akane immediately recognizes the same perfume scent from the night before. Determined to get answers, Akane waits for Sato at home. Remembering Chiyo's advice to accept her feelings, she finally decides to call Shisei's landline since she doesn't have Sato's number. However, it's Shise's mother who answers, and when Akane politely asks for Seto, she coldly refuses, dismissing Akane's marriage as a sham and telling her not to concern herself with his affairs. Meanwhile, Seto finally completes his task and receives his paycheck from Shise's mother. She then asks if Akane knows why Seto has been visiting. Seto replies that he has kept it a secret from her. Later that night, he stops by a store to buy the ring Akane had her eye on. But when he returns home, he is met with anything but a warm welcome. Akane immediately accuses him of being unfaithful with Shise and sarcastically suggests he should just marry her instead. Seto tries to explain, but Akane cuts him off, telling him not to bother coming home anymore. She insists she can manage on her own. Before she storms off, Seto shows her the ring, revealing that he had been working at her aunt's company to earn enough money to buy it for her. Shocked, Akane asks why he would go so far, and Seto explains that it was meant as a symbol of peace between them. This leaves Akane flustered. The next morning, Seto wakes up beside her, and she happily shows him the ring on her finger. She asks if he will be late again that night, but he reassures her that the job is finished. That evening, Akane is so overjoyed that she prepares a feast of steak for Seto, so much that he ends up feeling sick. The next day, she proudly wears the ring to school, but Seo quickly drags her to a private spot before anyone notices. He warns her to be careful with it, so Akane decides to store it in her pouch. However, later in the day, Shise notices the ring and asks if she can have it. Akane refuses, saying it is too important to her. When she gets home and checks her bag, she realizes the pouch is missing. Panicked, she retraces her steps back to school in search of it. After an unsuccessful search, she decides not to tell Seto, knowing how hard he worked to get it for her. The following day, she continues looking but has no luck until she runs into Shise at the park. Shise immediately understands what happened and promises not to tell Seo. She offers to help Akane find the ring, explaining that she wants Seto to be at peace, which makes Akane realize how much Shise truly cares about him. While searching, Shise admits she loves Seto deeply. Despite their combined efforts, they fail to find the ring and walk home together in disappointment. Shise suggests that Akane asks Seto for help, knowing he has a sharp memory and might remember where she last had it. However, Akane, on the verge of tears, refuses to tell him. Meanwhile, Seto waits for Akane at home, but instead Shise arrives. He immediately picks up on the scent of Akane's signature seafood curry and asks where she is. Shise, keeping her promise, refuses to say anything. The next day, Seto, growing suspicious, follows Akane after school and soon realizes what she has been up to. Later, as Akane stands in the rain, feeling utterly defeated, Seto approaches her and gently tells her to come home. He reassures her that they can always get a new ring. However, Akane insists it isn't just about the ring. It was a real gift, unlike their arranged marriage. It was something Seto worked hard to get for her, showing his desire to connect with her. As she breaks down in tears, Seto finally understands how much it means to her and agrees to help find it. Thinking back to their activities that day, he recalls a moment outside a grocery store where Akane had opened her bag. Spotting a nearby drain, he reaches inside and miraculously finds the missing pouch. Overcome with joy, Akane throws her arms around him, thanking him through her tears. Seto then gently places the ring back on her finger. This then marks the end of today's anime recap. If you enjoyed the video and want more of it, please support the channel by leaving a like and subscribe. Let's help us reach our current goal of 20,000 subscribers.